Welcome to the Wizarding Wireless Network podcast with moi, AJ.
And moi, Will.
Together, we will be bringing you our no-holds-barred thoughts, opinions, and detailed analysis on all things Wizarding World. So with that in mind, grab yourself a glass of fire whiskey and settle in to this week's cozy episode of the WWN.
Welcome back to the Wizarding Wireless Network with your hosts AJ and Will, streaming to you on all of your favourite podcast providers and over on YouTube. On today's Folio Universitas episode, we are going to be talking about the Weasleys. Yes, we're talking about the Weasleys this week, aren't we?
From the top! Yes, we are. We are talking about all things Weasley, from Arthur to Ginny.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right, innit? Yeah, yes. Jenny's the young. Yeah, Jenny is the youngest.
She is indeed, without going into family mixing.
Yeah, we're that's a whole degree worth of stuff to get into, really.
I started looking into it and I was like, oh my god, okay, so they're linked in with the Blacks, the Carrows, like it was just, oh my god, this was like a minefield. Like,
they are linked in with everyone. It's not, I wouldn't say it's incestuous, but basically from what I gather, everyone in the Wizarding world is actually related.
Oh, 100, like, literally I was thinking like, okay, so you're related to the Blacks, so then Arthur is like the cousin or the uncle of Sirius Black at some form, or like a cousin twice removed. And I'm just kind of thinking like, okay, so you're also then related to a Malfoy. Oh, it just got really confusing.
Yeah, absolutely. So for this episode, let's keep it nice and simple. We will go from Arthur to Ginny, and we will give a little background on those characters, see what we think about them, and yeah, basically have a nice little discussion surrounding them.
Yeah. So I think that means it's me starting off, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Arthur Weasley. So Arthur was obviously a Weasley first and foremost. He is... Shall we do birthdays? Shall we kind of like do when they were born kind of thing?
Yeah, crack on. Why not?
Like
just
chuck.
Yeah.
Okay. So Arthur was born in February of 1950s. So he would have been in his 60s at the time of Harry Potter. Which I think
60s?
Yeah, if he was born in 1950 and they... Oh no, sorry, that's really bad math, sorry. Because it was
the man was 41.
40s.
My God.
Just a tad wrong.
God, instead of putting an invisibility booster on that Ford Anglia, he should be putting a Stannis stair lift in the burrow. Jesus Christ. Poor man.
So Arthur was born to... I'm going to have to look this up because these names are... When it comes to wizarding names, they are complicated.
I know. Do you know... yeah, I mean, bear in mind, you are English, so you have got that nice little, polite little twang to go through it. Your tongue gets wrapped around them a lot easier. Me and my broad Scottish tones. Can you imagine me trying to decipher half of these names?
Honestly, you wouldn't think I've got a nice English like dialect when I try and butcher these names. Jeez. So let's go from the top, shall we? So we've got Arthur was born of Septimus and Cedrella. Cedrella?
Mm-hmm.
Cedrella Weasley, who was then a Black. So this is where it gets really complicated and like we start diving into kind of like everyone's related to everyone.
Yeah.
Arthur went to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry and was placed into, obviously, Slytherin House.
Ovs.
No. I think we can safely say that every Weasley was a Gryffindor.
Do you know, right? You know that way when you know something is right, you just know it? Mm. It's like, I legit had to Google what house Molly Weasley was in because I just didn't believe myself. I don't know why. It's like, you know that way when you're in school, it's like 2 + 2 is 4, but let me just check it on the calculator.
To be fair, Molly is the type of person who could easily have been in Hufflepuff at the time.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Like, when I was looking up the stuff on Molly initially, there was... I think I looked at the page and it was the Weasley family tree. And I looked at the family tree and I was like, how are they related to them? And how are they related to them? And I was like, is this like Jeremy Kyle? Like, help, my husband's uncle is trying to kill me. Kind of type thing.
It's very much like I need DNA, like I need the DNA letters to come out.
Yeah. I wonder if there is like an equivalent of that in the wizarding world, like a paternity test. Do you think there's a spell for it?
Well, there must be, because, okay, so the main thing that Arthur has as his fascination, let's put it, was the fact that he is fascinated by how muggles do things in the muggle world that the wizarding world do with magic.
Yeah.
So I really want to know, like, what he makes of science and medicine versus, like, ailments in the wizarding world.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I remember, and specifically this bit sticks out to me in the Order of the Phoenix video game. And it's when they are back at Grimmauld Place for Christmas and you, as Harry, go and speak to Mr. Weasley just to see how are you doing, you know, after the attack. And it was like, oh, it was great. When I was in St. Mungo's, I met a trainee healer and he showed me this old muggle remedy called Stitches. And he was fascinated by it. Like, absolutely fascinated by it.
But it really makes you wonder, because it's like, okay, so in the medical world, for, like, what I was trained in with first aid and everything, like, to do with fractures, is you, as a person, cannot determine that someone has broken a bone until an x-ray's been completed.
Yeah.
Because we don't have x-ray eyes, we can't see it, so how are you to determine, unless it's sticking through the skin, then you can obviously tell. But if it's not, and it's not visibly dislocated or disjointed, you can't tell it's broken until the x-ray's done. How do they know in the wizarding world that, like, a bone's broken and know to then use the Skelly Grow?
Yeah. What is their diagnostic methods?
Exactly. So I'd probably be in Arthur's position in terms of being how fascinated they are with kind of the muggle remedies, the muggle kind of, like, uses of technology.
Yeah.
Why was I saying this?
I can't remember.
DNA tests.
DNA tests. That's the one.
So I would be in Arthur's position, and just like, what would they do? Because, like, you can't just wave a magical wand and, like, find, like, a golden tether that comes from one person to whoever their paternal parents are.
Right. See, now that you've said that, I have just... This is just the way that my mind went. But a golden tether, I can just imagine it like a reverse cum shot. You know, like... Do you know what I mean? Like, trailing back. But you see what I mean? It's just like... Like, could you imagine, like, one day you're just walking about and then all of a sudden this gold light appears at your crotch?
It's just like...
Like, may I help you? Or like a Patronus. Like Kingsley Shackleboat's voice just turning up at your crotch saying, "You are a father."
But you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand, like, how that would work in the wizarding world.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, okay. So let's kind of wrap back into the topic, because this is kind of getting, like, dangerous territory.
100%. Let's circle back.
So what was quite interesting about Arthur was, and I don't know whether you found this about Bonley, and I don't really want to kind of steal any of your, like, thunder per se with with facts about Molly, because like obviously they're very intertwined. Most of the stuff that we know about them is because of their relationship. It's very hard to determine what happened before all of that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was quite interesting was they didn't actually have any part to play in the First Wizarding War. And I then had to double check this because I was like, well, I'm pretty sure they're in the Order of the Phoenix photograph, but they're not.
They're not. I think Molly's brothers are in it.
I think they are.
The
because there are two distinctive gingers on that left-hand side of the photo. But I always assumed that Molly and Arthur were just in that photo somewhere. They're not in that photo at all.
Yeah. I'm now looking to see if they are actually in. Yeah, so so both of the Pruitts were in the Order of the Phoenix.
Okay, that makes sense then.
Yeah, both of them were in it. And do you know it took 5 Death Eaters to kill them?
Yes, I think I remember reading about that because that is something related to Bill, I think. But I'll circle back onto that one a bit later.
Yeah.
So that was one of the main first kind of interesting points I found with digging around with Arthur, was the fact that I assumed that they were both in the Wizarding World, but knowing they weren't makes a hell of a lot of sense when it comes around to the second Wizarding World and actually how they act, because obviously they've lived through the first one. They know what happened to other people. They know what happened to their family members. So rightly they'd be scared. But they've never actually been actively involved. They've always been that kind of family who have been in hiding. Yeah.
It's very much like they've taken a very passive role. It's like they know where their loyalties lie. But yeah. And then I think a major turning point for both of them would have been when Molly's brothers died. Yes. And then they would have been like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not having any of my children go through what I did.
Yeah, exactly. And I think obviously what stopped them the most with being involved with the First Wizarding War was the fact that they were in the midst of 4 or 5 at the time, of their kids growing up.
Yeah.
So that then had a massive impact on them actually having a participation, which they then later rectified then obviously when it comes to the second Wizarding World, and both of them joined the Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Arthur has 2 jobs. Do you know what they are by any chance?
So, he works in the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office.
He does. So that is his main work. So that's what we first get introduced to him as in the Chamber of Secrets. But later on, he moves to a different department. Do you know what that is?
I am literally digging the deepest recesses of my brain to try and remember. Oh, that's a good one.
If he makes such a good Harry Potter quiz question, wouldn't it?
I know, it really would. What is his other job? I keep going back to, like... I've got 3 in...
Have a stab.
I want to say transportation, but I don't think it is.
No.
Is it magical permits or something? 1 permits?
Nope.
What?
So he gets moved to a different department and becomes the head of this department when Rufus Scrimgeour then comes into being as the head of the Ministry of Magic. So he becomes the head of the Office for Detection and Confiscation of Counterfeit, Defensive Spells and Protective Objects.
Oh, so it does. So it does.
I think it's a really, something I completely overlooked. I completely forget about this every time.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely forgot that.
And obviously there'll be probably listeners shouting answers at their phones.
Yeah.
So I actually then did a little bit of digging into this department, and I kind of quite liked the idea of this because obviously it was around the time of the Second Wizarding War, and this was kind of Arthur's part in that, in the defence of the Wizarding World was the fact that everyone's kind of panicking, everyone's buying things to protect themselves with, but obviously people are then taking advantage of that. Death Eaters are then trying to sneak into that market to try and tamper with things. So actually his department was to confiscate those items that potentially could cause harm to members of the Wizarding World.
Yeah. So it's like the magical equivalent of pirate DVDs.
Yeah, or like I was gonna say FDA, but that's...
Is that not drugs?
Yeah. I mean, food one. What's the food? Like food safety standards.
Oh, I don't know. I just eat it.
Open the packet and eat it.
Yeah. Or take it from the drive-thru and eat it probably is a bit of it.
So that was kind of like his kind of introduction into it. Obviously, we know about the attack on Arthur during the First Wizarding War with Nagini at the Department of Mysteries.
Yeah.
So I'm not really going to go too far into that because obviously we'll cover that part in the chapter, and most people listening to this will have an understanding of that's what happened. With Arthur and the rest of the Weasleys being known as kind of blood traitors, and I think you'll probably go onto this with when we talk about the Wizarding families. Interestingly, it wasn't actually Molly and Arthur who then had that perception about them. It was actually pre-Arthur with his mother and father getting married. That's then what caused them to be known as blood traitors and actually kind of tampered the Weasley kind of family name. So again, I thought that was quite like an interesting point of it's more of a hereditary thing rather than something that's been recently given to the or a name given to that family. Realistically, I didn't want to kind of delve too much into like what we knew within the books too much because like plot points most people know. Yeah, for sure. But obviously, he met the love of his life and the wife of Arthur Weasley. He met Miss Molly whilst at Hogwarts.
Yes, he certainly did. Our dearest Molly Weasley, nee Pruitt, she was born on the 30th of October, unknown between if it's 1949 or 1950, and she is an English pure blood witch. Now, she was from the Pruitt family, which we did discuss very slightly earlier on, and she is the sister to Fabian and Gideon Pruitt. They were members of the original Order of the Phoenix, and as stated before, it took 5 Death Eaters, including Anton and Dolohov, to kill them, so they must have been fairly skilled at dueling magic as a whole. I think as well, Molly is one of these characters who I absolutely love because a lot of people, I think, slept on her as a character. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's like you just see her as like the mother figure, and it's just like, yeah, she runs a great home. She's great at cooking spells. She's great at cleaning spells. But when it comes to a duel, is she going to be able to, face up to it?
Yeah, because she held her own.
Oh yeah, little did we know. 1997.
Oh,
or is it 98? 98, yeah, academic year of 97 to 98. She went full pelt and she killed the one and only Bellatrix Lestrange. Many have tried and many have failed, but not Molly Pruitt.
No, give her a wand, give her a battle arena, and she's on it.
She is absolutely on it. Now, when it comes to her wand, we don't actually know what length it is, what wood it is, or what core it is, which I find a bit odd because it's one of the ones that are made by the Noble Collection. And when you look at it, it's one that I actually don't own. I've got Arthur's wand, and it's relatively similar to Molly's, I think, in terms of the structure and the design. So you can see how they kind of marry off against each other. You can see why they're quite a nice pairing. So yeah, Molly's wand in comparison to Arthur's wand, it's a very basic design, which almost I would probably say is not basic, it's rustic. It looks as if it's been well used. It's not an elegant wand as such. It's designed for its purpose for magic. It's not for anything flourishy. It's just for day-to-day magic by the looks of it. But we know that it packs a fair punch. So So with that being said, when Molly was at Hogwarts, she was of course sorted into Gryffindor. She then met dearest Arthur Weasley, and she went on to have 7 lovely children who we all know as Bill, Charlie, Percy, Fred, George, Ron, and Ginny.
So out of the Weasleys, because I'm going to mention it now that we've kind of mentioned all of their names, but before we kind of go into all of them too much, you mentioned about Molly not being portrayed as particularly anyone who's dangerous per se, but someone who's like a mother figure. Who do you think out of the Weasleys that we've seen got the worst deal in terms of like misrepresentation or like adaptation into the film? Do you think that was like put across? Because obviously Molly's character being that kind of mum and wholesome character, that kind of translated across quite nicely. But do you think she was kind of done a bit dirty in the film?
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, I think Julie Walters' portrayal of her was absolutely phenomenal because you could actually see the warmth coming from her. And she is a mother figure, and she played that character to a T. She is genuinely one of the people who I think, if I read the books, I see Julie Walters. And I can't imagine...
She just exudes that character.
She does. I cannot imagine anyone else doing that to the same way that she did. Yeah. But on the previous episode, we did touch on the fact that Charlie was not incorporated at all in the movies. I think probably if we're going by that question, he was probably the one who was hardest done by, because you didn't really get anything. You didn't get a sense of him at all. But then by the same token, when it comes to Bill, you didn't really get to see any interaction between mother and son. You know, I think if you were to say who was Molly's favourite child, it would be Percy.
Yeah, I think she definitely has that kind of like closest connection with him.
Yeah, Percy is absolutely he is a mummy's boy. Like he is a lawful good, and he will just stick to rules, regulations, and he does everything by the book, but to the extent of hurting his mum and dad in the Order of the Phoenix. And then a few years later, we get that nice reunion at the Battle of Hogwarts. But I think Percy would be her favourite child, I would say. Okay. You know, that way it's like all mothers say, you know, I love my children individually. Bollocks.
I love them all the same for who they are.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They do have their favourite.
Of course they do.
And it's me. So, in terms of skills and attributes that Molly would have, I would say, I mean, she is an exceptionally skilled witch, I would say. She has got an unmatched dueling ability that only really came out when she was really, you know, threatened with the death of her daughter. You know, that epic line, "Not my daughter, you bitch."
I'm so glad they kept that line in the film.
You and me both. I swear to God, I was screaming when I first seen that in the cinema. But it just goes to show, you know, you see Molly being very reserved almost. You can see the fury in her when, like in Chamber of Secrets, when Harry, Ron, Fred and George come back after flying the car, and she's like, "Where have you been?" And then with the howler later on in the movie. But then you're like, that's just a mother.
Yeah, she's definitely got like that mother's anger.
Yeah, for sure. But then you don't really get to see, you sort of understand a lot more where her real fears are, like why she's so protective of her children. Because in Order of the Phoenix, when they're cleaning out Grimmauld Place, they find a boggart, and Molly's boggart is one of her children lying dead. Which unfortunately does come to pass in Deathly Hallows. Yeah,
I think that is, in a way, like a nice, subtle hint really early on as to what is to come. Like, it was quite nice with it being that link between her showing her vulnerability of her losing we don't see which child it is, but it is one of the Weasleys dead. And obviously later on that comes to pass. It's almost, I don't know, I want to be like it's a full circle moment, but like it's such a nice kind of, well, nice is a really like loose word, but a good use of foreshadowing.
Yeah. It's in terms of like her actual Yeah, so it's a very nice way of sort of foreshadowing what is to come. The thing that I also do quite like here is the fact that Molly is the ultimate mother figure in the whole of the series. You cannot put anyone else against her to say she is an epic mother. I know that, Narcissa Malfoy did what she did. She betrayed Voldemort so that she would know that if Draco was alive. And, she did that for her son. Fair enough. But I just I can't see the selflessness of Molly being portrayed anywhere else. The thing that I loved about Molly is the fact that she basically adopted Harry as her own, because obviously Harry has no family to speak of, with the exception of the abusive muggles that raised him, and also Sirius Black, who then requiescent and patch him. But then, her boggart is also the corpse of Harry too. So it makes me think that she genuinely sees him as a son.
Oh, 100%. I feel like the later books, we definitely get that sense that she has inadvertently adopted Harry as one of her own.
Yeah. One of the nicest parts for me in this whole series is the part where I think it was for their birthday. I can't remember, but Ron gets this brand new watch and Harry gets a hand-me-down watch from Molly. And Harry was thrilled with it because it was second-hand, and he said he's never had a family heirloom before. And I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah. And I think it shows what's quite nice is the link that Molly has, and especially, I think really all of the Weasleys really, is it brings out that kind of wholesome, humble side of Harry.
Yeah.
And this is why I kind of wanted to ask the question about who had the kind of dirty, who'd done the dirty on the Weasleys in the films, because I feel like that aspect of Ron is really missing from the film version of him. It's that kind of humbleness, and he is that kind of bridge between both Harry and Hermione.
Yeah, she's one of my absolute favourite characters. She genuinely is. In terms of her costume design and stuff, I love the way that they went with it in the movies, because they sort of went of a stereotypical working class housewife, but with a mishmash of colours all over the costume. I absolutely love it. And then you sort of get to see her fully dressed up when it comes to Bill and Fleur's wedding.
Yeah.
And I love it. I absolutely love it. And I think the fact as well that she killed Bellatrix Lestrange literally wearing a penny. For me, that was just the cherry on top of the cake. Is that I can pretty much a cardigan. She was like, nah. And she's going full pelt.
Arthur just leaving, kind of Molly, are you sure you don't want to wear something a bit more sensible? And she's like, nah, fuck it.
Yeah, let's
just
go for it.
Throws the dishes back into the dishwasher, and it's just no, we're going.
Yeah.
But I think they did a very good job with the costume design for both kind of Arthur and Molly, because actually it's really highlighting the fact that it's almost like that wartime reuse, recycle mentality with what they wear. It's
very 1943, height of the war, land army. It's I can see it in the history classroom that when I was in school, those all posters.
Yeah.
Let me see, I need to find this one because I can see it in my mind. Wait a minute.
The Dig for Victory. Yeah.
Yeah, Dig for Victory.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very much I think I still remember to this day my English teacher going on about how the whole of the Harry Potter series is basically focused around World War II, very much case of Voldemort and the Death Eaters is inspiration from the Holocaust era.
Yeah.
Nazi Germany kind of vibe. And I think the creative directors, when they were then doing costume design and costume direction, was very much pulling from that era.
Yeah, for sure.
Molly is the mother to the 7 Weasley children.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, that number 7 crops up again.
It is. You said earlier in one of the other episodes that it's always number 7.
Yeah. 7 books, 7 Horcruxes, Harry's number 7 on the Quidditch team, 7 Weasleys.
Exactly. It crops up again and again.
Wait a minute. I read something about this. Like, I think in like divinity, I think it's like in Christianity and the majority of the religions, number 7 is like the perfect number. Because it's like,
it's like a prime number.
Apparently as well, like the number 7, like in the Bible, the number 7 often symbolizes completion or perfection. Genesis said that God created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, and upon completion, God rested on the 7th. Based on this cycle of work and rest, God commands you to labour for 6 days and then complete the week by resting on the 7th day.
Oh, okay.
The number 7 also has meaning and denotes completion at the crucifixion, when Jesus spoke 7 statements in agony from the cross at the completion of his earthly duties. It also says number 7 is for exoneration and healing, fulfillment of promises and oaths. I mean, I didn't do a theology degree, but the number 7 crops up an awful lot in this series.
And I think it's definitely intentional in terms of how many times it crops up.
Yeah. I think if you were to deliberately look in the series for the number 7 and how many times it's been mentioned, it would be like astounding.
With regards to obviously the Weasleys, we all know that both Arthur and Molly had the Burrows as their main house of residence within the Wizarding World, and that is what we know Harry to have stayed in during the course of the books. Now, interestingly, there isn't actually any definitive point in where the Burrows came from. There's no history of it being built, being passed down to Arthur or Molly, family history or family ties to the Burrow. Mm-hmm. So I generally think that this is a house of their own making.
And I love that fact. I genuinely do, because do you know what this is kind of reminding me of? It's kind of like they're throwing off the shackles of their pure blood status. And they're like, no, this is good. We're making this our own. Yeah. And this might be a controversial opinion, but see if I could live in any of like the homes, I would live in the Burrow.
Oh, I don't think it's a controversial opinion at all. I would 100% love to have the Burrow as a house. And no word of a lie, I've speculated to Adam multiple times that if I had like a development company, I would 100% do a like full size Burrow. Like, you know how you can stay in Hagrid's hut?
Yes.
I would 100% do the Burrow and have that as like an Airbnb type place. Now,
logistically and architecturally, without magic, how are we building that?
A lot of steel support beams.
Jet fuel can't melt steel support beams, just saying, by the way. Oh, do you know something that's even more terrifying? Have you seen the Generation... Is it Generation Alpha?
Alpha.
No. We're Generation Alpha. Of course we have a 10-step skincare routine. No! Stop it!
You do not need a 10-step skincare routine at your age.
You are 9 years old. You do not need retinol.
Do you know the scary thing?
What?
Next year is going to be the first year when Gen Alpha will be able to have like alcohol and jobs.
Do you want to know something that's even more terrifying? I'm 30 next year.
It's...
In gay years, I am dead and buried.
You and me both, AJ.
You're younger than me, and you're still a twink.
25, and you might as well be a dinosaur at this point.
Yes, but you're still a twink. I have gotten. What do you mean just? You're borderline malnourished. You are a Victorian ghost child. Just my arse.
I'm trying to like go into like twonk phase, but it's just not working.
Yeah, I tried that and just went into chub. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Anyway, kind of let's circle back before it gets too out of control. So, yeah, the only thing, like, I don't think it's controversial. Stop.
No, Joe, I'm not laughing at that, right? I'm reading this.
Okay.
And they're talking about the Burrow, right? And they've said that so set decorator Stephanie McMillan needed to decorate the Weasley home not once but twice after the Burrow was lit on fire and the Half-Blood Prince. But there's a quote here, right? And I've just got images of Carol Smiley on changing rooms, and she's like, "We completely changed the furniture and gave them a new kitchen."
We went to Neptune, like fished out something.
We kept the cast iron fireplace, which would have survived, but otherwise would replaced it all.
I still do not agree with that scene.
I remember reading the book and going like that. Where's the burning?
Yeah, like, and the thing is, it doesn't make any sense to plot points of burning down the burrows.
Yeah.
Like, it's meant to be like, it's used as a safe house in the next book. Like, if they're able to infiltrate it now, like, it doesn't make any sense.
And you know, this is the thing. I genuinely believe, right, that see after, especially, right, so as soon as Voldemort came back and Harry said that, the Weasleys automatically would have been like, right, this is it. We know that he's back. When it came to the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, we had two Weasleys who were there. We had Ron and we had Ginny. Mm-hmm. If you are telling me that Arthur and Molly did not put protective enchantments on their home then...
That is negligence. That is child endangerment.
It just does not make sense to me. It doesn't make sense.
Literally. But it's also... Okay, so you talking about the kitchen being revamped...
Yeah.
Can we please talk about the revamp of the Weasleys and where they got the Everest windows from? The white UPVC windows in the revamp of the Burrows.
Wait a minute. Oh, yeah!
I don't agree with some of the redesign sections. Those kind of UPVC windows, like, keep what they had with it being like the stained glass windows. They were perfect for the look of the Burrows. Mm-hmm. Very kind of like homely mishmash of designs. Like, it would be like normal panels of glass, and then suddenly you would have like the stained glass panel because that's what they could get their hands on.
Yeah.
And what was quite nice is how the Weasleys actually described it, and it's described in then like the films and the books of everyone kind of going, it's not much, but it's home.
Oh, I love the Burrow so much. It's a great design. Do you remember Thomas's scale model of it?
Yes. Oh.
Divine.
I love, like, even that it's made completely out of paper, it is stunning.
Yeah, it really is. I'm going to go completely off topic here, which is not like me. But I've just flicked through this book again and I've seen like an illustration of a dragon, and then it reminded me of last week, and it was when we were talking about dragon breeds which are native to the UK, and we were talking about the Hebridean Black. Mm-hmm. So, you know in Hogwarts Legacy, when at the very beginning your character gets attacked by Ranrock on the dragon?
Yes.
That's a Hebridean Black.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And is that the same as the dragon that you rescue from the bandits that then starts flying around? Because there is another black dragon that you rescue.
There certainly is. Where are we? Oh, no, it was. You're right. You are right.
I'm rubbish at general knowledge of Harry Potter, but give me a play, like...
Obscure question.
Obscure thing.
I tell you, I would love to do Harry Potter on Mastermind. Yeah. And I don't care what you say, you could literally have all the money in the world, but that doesn't buy you happiness. Like, in that sense, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like created wealth, fair enough, because you've made it and you know what you want to do. Like, you can spend the money on what you want, but like, I would not trade my bringing up for anything in the whole world.
Yeah, I think definitely in the Wizarding world it's very different because it doesn't, you don't seem to be tied down to money as you do kind of within, like, let's say, normal world.
Yeah.
Just living in that place, like, you wouldn't want to leave. It is so cozy, it's so homely. I don't know, it's very cottage quaint. It's not like cottage, like when you think about like cottagecore and like that kind of design where it's like white walls, sliding doors, like live, laugh, love on the wall. Weasley have like this, it's so English cottage vibe. It is beautiful. Like, it's so well done.
It really is. But God, I do not think the Weasleys would be a live, laugh, love family.
Internally.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who would though. Who would have a live, laugh, love thing in their home?
I really want to say like the Malfoys. They are that kind of like.
No, they wouldn't.
No. Who would? Who would be the live, laugh, love family?
Hannah Abbott. Yeah, Hannah Abbott.
Such a bitch.
Or Susan Bones.
To be fair, I had Susan Bones in my head.
Yeah.
But then I was like, that's a bit harsh on her, the fact that her mum dies, but...
Is it her mum who Amelia? I thought that was her auntie. Yeah, Amelia Bones is her auntie. She's the one that works at the ministry, and she was at Harry's hearing.
Okay, fine. I take it back.
You need to get preparing for this quiz, boy. It said that little is really known about Susan Bones' upbringing, but we know that her auntie, Amelia, works at the ministry. She died. A Hogwarts student's discussing Amelia's murder. Girl number 1, did you hear about her aunt, poor Susan? Yes, it's awful. I didn't want to leave my family behind this summer. She was murdered during the second week of July in 1996 in the summer holiday, presumably for her anti-Voldemort activities in her own home.
So they're just not named. So you had Amelia and Edgar and a third child. So they had 3 children. Mm-hmm. The one who's unnamed had a Susan.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's really confusing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We digress.
We really do. So yeah, the Burrow, I think actually in terms of that translation from the books to the films, definitely had that really kind of cozy vibe. They really did like a good translation of how it fits, because the description that we get from the books is that it's as different as possible from life in Privet Drive, and the fact that it is... Do we actually really get a description of what the Burrow looks like?
I mean, not... wait a minute, let me check. The first time we would really see the Burrow is in Chamber of Secrets. So let me pull this up.
It says, it looked as though it had once been a large stone pig pen, but extra rooms had been added here and there until it was 7 stories high, and so crooked it looked as though it was held up by magic. 4 or 5 chimneys were perched on top of the red roof. A lopsided sign stuck in the ground near the entrance read, "The Burrow." Mm-hmm. Around the front door lay a jumble of rubber boots and a very rusty cauldron. Several fat brown chickens were pecking their way around the yard.
Okay.
I think, like, when you actually then look at the Burrows, like, that is a pretty accurate
description.
Yeah. I think that was a really good translation as to kind of how it looks in the film.
Yeah, I agree.
You don't dismiss it. It looks magical in its own way.
Yeah.
So I'm so I am really, like, impressed with what they did in terms of the design of it. Mm-hmm. Because if I don't know whether you have had a look at some concept art of the Burrow.
Yeah.
There's just some of the designs that they went through, and I think it got to the point where it almost looked like old Mother Hubbard kind of house where it's a house but with houses kind of like stacked on top of it.
Yeah, houses hemorrhaging upon hemorrhaging houses.
Yeah, and I just think it kind of got too far away from like that pig pen look.
Yeah.
Whereas what we actually got was very accurate.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked a lot about kind of the Weasleys, Arthur and Molly predominantly, and the Burrows. I think what we're going to have to do is we're not really going to have a chance to talk about the kids in this one. So what we're probably going to do is actually can split this into a two-parter. So we're going to stick with Arthur and Molly, the Burrows, and then what we'll do is we'll do the kids in a separate episode.
At some point down the lane.
Now, what we should kind of wrap up with, just to kind of finish off the Weasleys, because this is the Weasley family tree after all. The Weasleys make up one of the... what's the name?
You tell me, William.
It's the mystical Fabulous Five.
No. The Sacred 28.
That's the one.
Yes.
Now, what is the Sacred 28 then, AJ?
So basically, in a nutshell, the Sacred 28 were, according to the author of the Pure Blood Directory, who was widely believed to have been cantankerous not, the 28 British families that were still truly pure blood by the 1930s. So the 28 sacred pure blood families are the Abbott family, Avery, Black, Bulstrode, Burke, Carroll, Crouch, Foley, Flint, Gaunt, Greengrass, Lestrange, Longbottom, Macmillan, Malfoy, Knott, Ollivander, Parkinson, Pruitt, Rosier, Rowell, Selwyn, Shacklebolt, Shafiq, Slughorn, Travers, Weasley, and Yaxley.
Wow, that is a lot.
It's a fair amount. But interestingly enough, when you look at the majority of some of these families now, for example, the Crouch family, that's basically extinct. Like there's no surviving heir to the Crouch family.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because Barty Crouch, remember, he died, and then Barty Crouch Jr. Well, he doesn't have a soul anymore, so we can basically say he is essentially dead.
Mm-hmm. But interestingly, like, there's no... Because obviously what we talked about with the Weasleys and they're kind of interlinked between kind of families that we talked about at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
There's got to be some remnants, whether it's through kind of female linkage through the families of Crouches somewhere.
Uh-huh.
But obviously the name itself is no longer around.
Yeah.
What was quite interesting about a lot of those names was how many of them are so familiar.
Yeah, exactly. Like the majority of them, you could literally pick out like a character. The only family that I am a little bit confused about is the Shafiq family, because I was not aware of any of them.
No, is that one that's kind of like cropped up from...
All right, okay, they were in
Fantastic
Beasts, yeah.
I thought it'd be. Isn't that that mysterious guy who keeps cropping up, who's part of the team but isn't part of the team? And
I think so. Do you know, I really need to rewatch Fantastic Beasts because I've only seen it once.
And then, who was the other one? Not Grass?
I think so, yeah.
So that was the one for me I couldn't think of a character for.
Oh, Greengrass.
Greengrass, okay. Not Grass, obviously, is the potion ingredient.
Yeah, no, Estonia Greengrass, Malfoy's wife.
Okay, that is quite obscure, though.
Yeah, but it's Astoria, not Estonia. Yeah, Astoria. Astoria. Forever to the end of time.
Learn something new every day. Every day is a school day.
You certainly do, and that is what we aim to bring here on this dearly beloved podcast. was going to say Dearly Departed.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Many years to come.
So yeah, like the Sacred 28, like I think it's one of those things that isn't really like talked about in the films at all, but is kind of hinted at, and I think is talked about within the books quite a fair amount. So how come the Weasleys? So they're part of the Sacred 28.
Yeah.
Why do they then get such a bad reputation then? If they're meant to be one of the pure blood families, like why are they so kind of disregarded?
I think possibly because they don't really see the whole pure blood purity as strongly as the Black and Malfoy family do. They're sort of kind of like, what? Why? Like, why are we preserving this pure blood thing? We're no better than a Muggle or Muggle-born or half-blood.
Okay. So it's very much a case of like all of these families are still thinking that they're above everyone because they're still purebloods.
Essentially, yeah.
So the Sacred 28, it is so incestuous with a lot of the families within it.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, we could go into this and like go through so many different like families, different names, and like be here for hours. So I think actually let's call this part 1.
Part 1.
And we will revisit this with the rest of the Weasleys, especially their children, all 7 of them.
The little brute.
And we will revisit this topic at a later date. But for now, I think that kind of wraps up everything about what we talked about. Arthur Weasley, Molly Weasley, the Burrows, and the Sacred 28 as a kind of opening to the rest of the family.
Yes. So, with that in mind, at this stage in the game, we will say to you, cherry bubbles and kindest regards, and we will see you next week, where we will be talking about what?
So, next week, we will be talking about Chapter 15, The Forbidden Forest. So, we are going into detention. We will be finding out the mystery behind the man with 2 faces.
Yeah.
With that in mind, thank you guys so much for listening. And as always, keep your radios tuned in for next week's episode. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the podcast down below. And likewise, you can always check out our other episodes over here.
Yeah.
And make sure to favourite our podcast so you never miss out on an episode and get to see our lovely faces every week.
Yeah.
But for now, it will be kindest regards.
And cherry bubbles.
And we will see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.